Things in Amityville are getting animated. Here's your look at the NECA toys, Toony Terrors, Jaws, Quint versus the Shark. Quint and the Shark from the 1975 classic Jaws are joining the adorably creepy Toony Terrors line. This two-pack includes the pair in 6-inch scale with machete and harpoon spear accessories for Quint and the extra fin for the Shark. Comes in window box packaging with a bonus cutout backdrop. What I thought could make for a fun comparison is obviously this is the brand new Toony Terrors Quint from the 1975 classic Jaws. And then next to him there's a space open available. We can bring in the retro cloth Quint, also produced by NECA Toys. Now, likelihood you're probably not going to be displaying these together unless you're somebody that collects everything from Jaws, then yes, may make more than sense that you're going to have all the Quints together. But just kind of give you a nice fun comparison. This now marks the second Quint that NECA Toys have put out. Now, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that provided this sample of the Toony Terrors Quint and Bruce the Shark that we could have a look at in this review, though nowhere on the front of the packaging does it actually say Bruce. It just says the Shark. Anyways, though, I've already taken the liberty of taking, of course, the figures out, and I've already dedicated the accessories to which character they belong to. Clearly, the front dorsal fin is not going to belong to Quint, and nor is the harpoon and the machete going to be something that the Shark's going to be able to carry around with him. Come on, that's ridiculous. Anyways, though, we're going to have a look at the accessories. Starting first, let's look at the harpoon. Now, you may notice that the harpoon is considerably warped. At least the handle is. I'm sure you probably could straighten this out, put it either in hot water or use a hairdryer trick to heat up the plastic and make it straight. But I gotta believe that NECA Toys deliberately made it curved like this to give it more that animated look. After all, I couldn't really imagine that Quint be some of those characters, grizzled town folk that Mystery Incorporated would have run into, and they would have had him helping them to solve the case of the ghost shark that was scaring away tourists. That would make for a rather interesting Scooby-Doo episode. But yeah, going back to the harpoon, though, I gotta believe it being curved like this is intentional. The end of it, the actual point of the harpoon, is done in that same familiar pastel blue that we've seen in other Toony Terrors, though usually it's kept to the reflection off of swords, machetes, knives, and anything that's sharp. Here, though, it represents the end point of the harpoon. Now, this can fit into his hand, but it's only on one hand that it slides into. If we pick the figure up, if you look at his two hands, one hand has a notably smaller hole. You can see right there. There we go. A little bit more of a smaller hole on this side than this side here. If you to take the harpoon, just as a scenario, and we put it in this hand, clearly, as you can see, it just slides straight through. It's really not supposed to be for this specific hand. This hand is for holding the machete. So instead, what we'll do is we'll turn our attention to this hand right here. And you can take the harpoon and slide it in place. One unfortunate side effect, though, is because the grip is almost exactly the same size as the handle for the harpoon. As I've already slid this through a couple of times, you can already see what's happened here. The black paint that they painted on the handle has already now started to flake off, or rub off as it's rubbed to the inside of Quint's hands. It's one of those cases where there is a lot of friction. You'll feel it, believe you me, as you're sliding it through, that the paint does just start wearing off. I'm sure the more times that I do it, the more paint is going to come off. So I'll probably decide for myself either to leave it in his hands or instead to decide to display the figure with the machete instead. Speaking of the machete, we'll just put the figure down for a second. By the way, I marvel the fact that even though he's off length on the legs, he actually stands pretty good. More on that in a second. The other thing he comes included with is a smaller machete, something that I'm sure Jason Voorhees would be envious of. It's a very broad blade and still has that reflective pastel blue light that they put on both sides of the blade. The handle is done in more of a dark chestnut brown, and it fits into his hand, again, in a dedicated hand. Not this side, because the hole is too small, but instead, you can take the machete and fit it into this hand right here. Now, I don't know if it's excess and overkill to have him actually wielding both the weapons in his hand, though judging by the size of the shark, it's probably not that bad of an idea. But you can definitely have him displayed with either one, or the other, or both, or without, really, if you want to. Let's go ahead and just take these weapons out of his hands. We'll just put those to the side, because that might just get in the way of things as we're having a closer look at the figure. Again, pulling out the harpoon, poor paint has just rubbed right off in the end of it. Luckily, the inside of his hand seemed not too much affected by it. Maybe just a little bit of black is left behind, but that poor harpoon has been stripped away, and every single time I'm going to do it, it's probably going to strip away more of that paint. That being said, let's get a closer look at Quint here. And you know, I gotta say, this is a character that could work well in a Scooby-Doo universe. Imagine a seaside kind of, I don't know, hermit that lives by the water, tells the tales of the ghost shark that Mystery Incorporated have come to solve the mystery of. Yeah, I could imagine Quint definitely being a Scooby-Doo episode. I think they've captured enough of the likeness of Robert Shaw, still with the large sideburns, very long hair sculpted on the back. His hat, by the way, in case you're curious, isn't removable. It's molded to his head, unlike the retro cloth figure that did have the option to remove the cap, and you could also put the bandana there in place instead. Very long, furry sideburns, and equally long and large caterpillar eyebrows on tops of his eyes. They've given him a nice dark blue eyeball, too. Well, I guess the iris of the eyeball. And he does have a nice expression also in his mouth as well, as if he's about to spin a few yarns. I'm always down for a few yarns spun. He has a little mole there on his face as well. Very, very nice head sculpt. I couldn't have asked for a better looking cartoon Quint. Now, looking at the rest of his body, one thing I did notice, though, is that the chest, the way that it's been painted, almost has a tacky look to it. Not tacky in the sense that he's wearing something that's clearly out of season, but instead more the paint looks like it may have been applied wet. Like it almost has a bit of a tacky look to it on the one side, especially in his neck as well. Other than that, though, it's a really, really nice looking figure. He's wearing his, speaking of pastel blue, he's wearing his pastel blue long-sleeved shirt. Not ripped here on the sleeves that he has later on in the movie, but more long sleeves. He's not also wearing the jacket, which is nice because the other Quint, the retro cloth figure that we looked at before, had the jacket. You could technically remove the jacket, but the sleeves weren't ripped. I think they were actually just, they went to a really about here on the figure, which I didn't end up showing in that review, actually. He does have the painted in buttons, nicely and cleanly applied all the way down, all four of them. And then there's two on either side of the pockets. Almost looks like a bit of a face that he has there. Also has them also in the cuffs of his sleeves. I'm spinning around so you can see the back of it. Very simple enough sculpting on the figure. Just putting in a little bit of wrinkle at the bottom of his shirt, but not feeling the need to put too much in there. Not really pulling away from the idea that this guy is supposed to look like he's from a cartoon universe. And then for his pants, as you can see, he's got the more darker brown pants. And then he's also got the little shoes there. Nice laces also painted in on the shoes, and also painted the equal same color on the bottoms of his soles as well. Now you may notice, I'm sure you'll notice that he does have a peg hole on the underside of his foot. This is good, even though he doesn't come with technically a display stand, that you could use a NECA display stand and attach it to that hole. Just attach it to the display stand and allow him to stand. Now, funny enough, though, even though he looks like he would have a difficult time standing, primarily because he's got the one leg on the one side, slightly more straighter, and then he's got more of the bent leg that clearly you can see is a lot shorter. He actually has no problems at all standing. He leans deliberately to the one side. Now, of course, you can also put it inside. You can put him inside Bruce's mouth, which I'll show you in a second. But again, I was surprised for the way that they've have his posture slightly off to the side like this, that Quint can actually stand pretty good on his own. Looking at the figure's accessories, looking at the figure's articulation. We'll start first with his head, and then we'll kind of meander our way down. His head is on a ball joint, which is nice to see. The head does move up, down, back, forth, and you can rotate it all the way around. Love, love, love that head sculpt. That's fantastic. Now, basically, everything else here is going to be relegated to straight swivels. The arms rotate all the way around. That's the case on both of them, actually. So you can either have, like, the arms down, for example. I mean, this would be good if he's inside the shark, for example, which we'll do in a second. Or you can have them up, like he's swinging with his machete and harpoon. His hands also rotate all the way around, and that's the case, again, on both sides. His waist rotates back and forth. And he does also have foot articulation as well. Now, the thing about the foot articulation, I think something you will want to be aware of, is depending on the way you have these angled, will determine how well he stands. You sort of have to get that sweet spot going with his feet. His legs aren't surprisingly so much the issue, it's his feet. If you have the feet the wrong angle, then Quint kind of gets off-kiltered and he doesn't have the ability to stand properly. Again, when it comes to his feet, you sort of have to get them in a way that the feet are kind of out, facing out on an angle like this, and that seems to be giving him the most stability when you have him standing like this. So up next, now we'll have a look at the shark itself, just entitled The Shark on the packaging, although it was coined behind the scenes that he was named Bruce. And I think it was named after Steven Spielberg's lawyer, if memory serves me correctly. Anyways, though, looking at the accessories that come included with the shark, he gets his first dorsal fin, which is actually painted nicely in a dark gray, the same gray that will match the rest of his body that we'll look at in a second. It's made of a solid, dense plastic, and you sort of see the bottom of it as well. This is supposed to go with the shark, not necessarily on the shark, and you'll see what I mean in a second. We'll pick the shark up. Because initially I thought that the fin would actually just sit onto the top of the shark's body, and in some ways, I'm going to go ahead and move Quint out of the way just for 1 second. In some ways, there's a couple of ways you can display the shark. Okay, so there's this way, without the dorsal fin, and we could just imagine that the rest of the body of the shark is underwater, so you wouldn't be able to see that fin anyways. You can also then take the fin and do a balancing act of having it on the top of his body. Now this takes a couple of tries and a couple of passes to get things lined up properly. Even though I don't imagine this to be the official way of displaying it with the shark, you can again sort of get a balancing act going. Sometimes I've managed to do it, sometimes I haven't been able to do it. It's again all a bit of a balancing act. For some reason or another it's not. There we go. There we go. Now the thing about this though is that the dorsal fin, by attaching it to his body very loosely, by the way, I mean, it doesn't attach by magnets, it doesn't plug into place or anything like that. The idea is I'm literally just resting it on top of his body. You could validly say that the fin is too far up the shark's body, that, you know, it should be further down around this area here. And you know, you wouldn't be that wrong by saying it. Why I'm balancing it certainly on the shark's body like this is if you want to have it as part of the shark. And by, again, the idea you're really only going to be balancing. There's no magnets or anything like that that's going to attach to the body, the top, back of the shark. You're literally, again, just resting in place like that. But that gives you the look if you want to have the dorsal fin actually attached to the shark. I think the more accurate way of having it displayed is by taking just the fin and putting it behind the shark like this. Now, this then leads to the idea that the shark is going to be bent like this, right? His body's going to be a little bit more straighter, and then the dorsal fin is going to be sticking out from the water. So there's that option as well. I kind of like the idea of actually having it like this, but I feel, again, it's too far up the shark, and really it doesn't stay properly in place anyways. So when it comes to displaying it, I'm going to probably put it the way that NECA really wanted to have it displayed in the first place, having the dorsal fin slightly sticking out of the water like this. I spent a whole lot of time talking about the dorsal fin. Okay, so we'll move that out of the way. And then, of course, we'll pick up Bruce and get a closer look at the shark itself, which is basically just a hollow shark. It has, again, some really nice detailing on the front of the sharks, the main outer area of the shark. Now, again, you can take Quint and you can fit him inside the shark's mouth, just avoiding the teeth, kind of getting everything in there. And you can have the shark swallowing up Quint of varying degrees. You can have him just kicking the shark near the end, and then eventually the shark just swallows and gobbles him right up. So you can display it like that if you want to. The neat thing about it, though, is that the shark feels finished even if you don't have Quint inside the mouth. Even though, yeah, you can kind of see the way the shark has been assembled, essentially being two halves of a shark that they've put together. You can kind of see the way that they interlock the inside of the shark parts together. But at least they've painted the inside of the shark's mouth so it looks colored. It looks pink. It looks like a real shark's interior mouth. It does have the rows of teeth, really only technically one row along the top, and then you've got like one behind row, and then you've got one smaller set of row of teeth that's sort of sticking out from the front of its gums. Now this one does have a lot of blood all over its mouth, so clearly it's ingested something. Maybe it's Quint's leg, maybe it's someone it was ingesting before it came across Quint's path, but needless to say, it does have some nice blood splattered across its mouth. It's a very nice painted looking shark. Pretty simple, all things considered. I mean, it has the darker gray at the back of its body, making up the majority of the top half. It does have the whiter area, making up the gray-white name. And it does have the very dark doll's eyes that the shark has as well. And all of the things that are on the shark are pretty clean. Like some of the white, yeah, it has bled a little bit. But I can't imagine nature to be a very stark line anyways. Even if there is a little imperfection on the white, it's so small and it's almost something you barely even notice in the first place. And of course, the bottom of the shark is going to be completely flat because, of course, it's just going to be sitting flat on your shelf. And then again, you can either have Quint displayed standing next to the shark, or you can have Quint displayed with his body inside the shark. Speaking of which, and I really like the fact that NECA Toys did include this. I'm just kind of moving everything out of the way. If you go to the box when you do pick up this figure for yourself, you may notice this. This is the inside of the box. This is something that you can actually remove with the remains of the orca left behind. And floating off is one little bit of drift piece of wood. You can actually take Quint, stand him on the wood, and then you can take the shark and put the shark right there. Now, the thing about it, though, is if you have it set up like this, then there really isn't a lot of space then to put the dorsal fin. Again, you can kind of have it just balancing on its back, or you can just leave it off altogether if you want to as well. Or, again, you can then take Quint and just put him inside. I wonder how many people are actually going to take the time and put Quint inside the shark's mouth. But yeah, you can do that as well. Maybe we'll just have his leg bent. That might make the most sense. That way, at least he sits flush onto the backdrop. That's a good, fun way of displaying both the figures. I kind of like the fact that they included this as well. I mean, I would have either displayed probably Quint standing or, like I said, having him inside the shark's mouth. But by bringing this also in as well as a possibility, not only does it make it look more like a cartoon, but it also sets the scene of, well, of course, Quint's final days, final moments, final seconds dealing with Bruce the shark. How awesome is it? The fact that, first of all, we even got ourselves a Toony Tears Jaws Quint. I mean, just if they had released the figure on his own, which they easily could have, given him the harpoon and given him the machete, I would have still picked him up in a heartbeat. But the fact that they actually pair him along with Bruce the shark is a nice touch on NECA's part. Now, you can either display the figure of Quint displayed fighting the shark, making use of that diorama piece that's actually inside the box. You just have to take it out of the box. It's not attached to anything. And just put that as a backdrop. You can have Quint sitting on what's left of the orca, fighting Bruce to his final breaths. Or you can just skip all that step altogether and actually have the shark gobbling him up whole. Now, you, of course, can display Quint with both the accessories. Here in Final Looks on the Rotisserie, I've just got him displayed with the machete. And then, of course, the accessory that comes included with the shark is he comes with his first dorsal fin. And there's a couple of different ways that you can display. The most realistic and practical way is what I'm doing right now. We've got the dorsal fin actually behind the shark. You can leave it off and just pretend that the rest of the body of the shark is underwater. Or you can also do step 3, which isn't the most realistic and practical way, but you can sort of balance it on the top of the shark's body, which is not really what it's supposed to be. And it does look like the dorsal fins stay kind of too far up the shark's body. No, the most practical way, the way that they really wanted you to have it displayed, is actually having it behind the shark's body. So it actually looks like it's coming out of your shelf. Or in a case like this, on the rotisserie, because the turntable is black, it kind of looks like he's coming out of a black hole. Scary, creepy shark coming out of a black hole. Why is there not a sci-fi movie made of that yet? Anyways, though, loving the look of Bruce the shark, even though he's technically called only the shark on the packaging. I love the fact that you can actually display Quint inside the shark's mouth. Fantastic work, though, on the part of NECA. And if you guys are a big fan of the 1975 Jaws, you might definitely want to pick this one up and add it to your collection. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of Quint and the shark. Actually, it says Quint versus the shark because they're not actually friends, not going out for a bite to eat. Well, the shark is going out for a bite to eat, and I guess Quint doesn't realize what's on the menu. I'm here all day. If you guys are new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Turn as well the bell notification and keep your peepers peeled because there will in fact be more videos, more NECA reviews lined up and coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.